My Seven Chakras, episode 193.
The thinking is the mind talking. Meditation is the mind listening. And channeling is the mind receiving.
The seven chakras, swirling vortices of energy, positioned throughout our body from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. For thousands of years, this ancient wisdom has been passed on from master to disciple. What are the functions of these energy centers? And could these chakras help you unlock your destiny and find your true purpose? Welcome to My Seven Chakras. And now, your host, Aditya Jai Kumar.
What's up, Action Tribe? AJ here, founder and host of My Seven Chakras, where we dive deep into the ancient world to uncover nuggets of wisdom that will help you find your life's purpose. So if you're on your spiritual path, but you're looking for actionable steps that you can take right away to change your life, then you are listening to the right show. Today's iTunes review is by Lady K, who says, comfort zone and growth don't normally go together. You either have one or the other, but My Seven Chakras provides the path to allow you to grow within the comfort of others. AJ brings the best guests that speak directly to my needs and quest of life. I find my comfort zone as I journey to my best self with AJ. He's an awesome host and attentive to his guests and listeners. It doesn't get any better than that, and I know he authentically wants us to be our best self. Tune in, and I know you will keep coming for more like me. You know, I feel so good when listeners take the time and heart to write such amazing reviews for us. It just makes me want to take things to a whole new level. Action Tribe, do you want your review to be read out as well? If yes, then take a minute to share your views and experiences in the form of an iTunes review. How do you do that? It's super simple. If you're on your podcast app on your iPhone, just hit reviews and then hit write a review. You can also use this link and jump directly onto the iTunes review page. The link that you need is my7chakras.com/review. That's my7chakras.com/review. You see, I read out each and every review because I just love hearing about the impact that our show has had on your life. So make sure you take the time to help me help you. And with that, I'm super excited to bring you our featured guest for today, Tom Evans. So, Tom, are you ready to inspire?
I hope so, and I think I do. That's what I do most of my days, and I love the whole process of inspiration.
Super. So, Tom is passionate about bringing magic into people's lives. He is an ex-BBC television engineer turned author, author's mentor, philanthropist, creative catalyst, and mindfulness, timefulness, and kindfulness practitioner. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we move on, what is one thing that is unique about yourself?
I think the main thing that's unique about me is that I'm a very practical engineer. So I've got my foot very firmly in the earth plane, the plane of material things, but also I'm very tapped into the ethereal and spiritual plane and act as a conduit from one to the other, if you'd like, a conduit between the above to the below. And I'm always aware of where I am, if I'm working in the physical plane or in the above plane, if in the ethereal plane, or actually working in the conduit mode. And I'm very, very aware of the whole, if you like, the duality of our existence, and also how we live in this amazing world, and it's really a pervasive illusion that it's very easy to see through, and also to manipulate and do some amazing magic in.
Wonderful. So thanks a lot for sharing, and I'm sure many of our listeners are on a similar journey like yourself, maybe people from different phases of life who have recently stumbled upon spirituality but want a path in front of them that they can take, ideally which has already been walked on. So can't wait to hear more about your story. But before that, my question is, what is your favorite inspirational quote, and how does that quote apply in your day-to-day life?
Well, it's a very simple quote. It's the three parts to it. And it's this, that thinking is the mind talking, meditation is the mind listening, and channeling is the mind receiving. And the way that works in my life is many people, that when they wake up in the morning, you start to think, and you don't even think about the fact that this happens automatically, and when you fall asleep again, you stop thinking. Of course, this is the most miraculous thing that bits of stardust have coalesced into us humans, and we are self-aware and we're able to think. But because we can only have one thought at a time, if we're thinking about the past or worrying about the future, we'll lose focus on the now. And meditation allows us to get into listening mode. And once we're in listening mode, and I meditate every single morning, we can then start to receive and channel through us inspiration, content, amazing enlightenments, and one links to the other. So realization that thinking is an automatic thing, and as it is automatic, we can control it. We don't have to think all the time. Meditation is the key to listening rather than thinking, and then when we go and we stay in the meditative state with our eyes open, we can start to channel and receive.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot for that really amazing quote. Thinking is the mind talking, meditation is the mind listening, and channeling, Action Tribe, is the mind receiving. So with that, let's dive in. What inspired you to write your book, The Authority Guide to Practical Mindfulness?
I think it was the publisher. I was actually planning not to write a book last year because I've already written 12.
Yeah.
And I've known this lady for many times, a lovely lady called Sue Richardson. And she started to produce these guides. They're only 96 pages long, so you can read them in a certain commute. And she said, Tom, I've been doing this series now for some time, and please write a book for me. And I said, well, I'm going to do that. I'd like to write a spiritual book, a book that uses spiritual principles, but it's going to be aimed at business people that might maybe never get into this kind of stuff, and show them how they can use the principles of meditation and mindfulness to achieve real world results. So she approached me in May. The book was written in June, because one of the things I teach is how to change the speed of time by changing the speed of your mind. And the book then was published in October. And what I wanted to do with it was something slightly different. Because I'm very practical, because I'm this engineer, I thought I don't just want to talk about meditation and mindfulness. I want people to experience the mindful meditative state. So there's 10 chapters in the book, and each one of them is accompanied by a 10-minute mindfulness meditation that augments it. So you read the chapter, then you listen to the meditation, so you actually experience what I'm talking about in the chapter. And these are free for anyone that buys the print and Kindle version, or they're embedded in the audiobook version as well. So don't just talk about this stuff, I actually do it too and show people how to do it. I love teaching.
Wonderful. And that's so true. Sometimes, especially if you're reading about spiritual principles or meditation, the book can go in depths about the history and can become very esoteric and very abstract and very theoric. And at the end of it, you know a lot about meditation, but you don't know what it feels like or what it is to experience it. And like you've mentioned, you've got an engineering mind, so you wanted people to take action. So not only read the chapters, but also experience the meditation itself. So I think that's a great way to do it. Now, my question is about your experience yourself. You began meditating in your mid-40s. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. Before that, I thought meditation was a complete waste of time and something to be done by kind of woo-woo la-la people.
Got it. So what changed? Like, how did you encounter it at that stage? What changed in your life that made you change the way you perceived meditation?
I think it was, people have this midlife crisis. Well, I didn't really have one of those. I had a midlife hiccup when I had a perfectly good job, well paid. I was, running a business unit, turning over a couple of £1 million a year, but I was really, really stressed. And I've been in the high-tech industries then for about 25 years, and I just got bored. And I thought, I didn't really throw my toys out the pram. I just sort of said to the people running this business, it's not on my heart, it's not in anymore. And I just want to walk away. So I walked away, didn't know what to do. I spent about 3 or 4 years just doing IT consultancy and a bit of journalism for high-tech publications. Yeah. And someone said to me, you look really, really haggard. You need to meditate. So I started persevered. And by this time, I'd also done Reiki 1 and 2. So I'd done a bit of healing, and mainly to learn it and to experience it, not to be a practitioner. And then weird things started to happen. And I noticed strange things happening in my life. And as an engineer, I thought I've got to research these. So I researched things more and more, and I joined a couple of esoteric schools to research things. And then I found that it opened up to a whole new career and an awakening that I wasn't expecting.
Got it. So love the term midlife hiccup instead of midlife crisis. Yeah. So you said that you were running a business unit, highly successful, but the job or the experience was very stressing. At that point, you were a bit bored. And so you made a difficult decision. You decided to walk away, and then you started doing IT consultancy for a time until somebody or a group of people maybe suggested to you that you should try out meditation. And through your practice, you also did Reiki, like you mentioned, but you had these moments or these awakenings. What did you experience?
Well, I started to, I did, around that time, I wrote a book. and people started to approach me to help them write their books as well. And I found out that, and because I'm a quite creative and helpful kind of person, and at first I think they approached me because I'm kind of, I can come up with ideas off the top of my head. I even wrote a book about that called The Art and Science of Liable Moments, about how we receive these ideas and how we can make the best ideas actually happen. But I've discovered that about 50% of the people I work with didn't finish their books, and I don't like that sort of percentage. So I went and did some study as a hypnotherapist and a past life progressor, and mainly because I thought, well, if people have got these writer's blocks, I intuitively understood that they're bound to be life blocks. So someone said when you're a child, you hand an essay in and you got a bad mark for it, and somewhere that's lurking as a memory in your unconscious mind. And the best way not to fail is not to try. So if you don't want to have any bad reviews for your book, the best way to not have any bad reviews is not to publish it. So I started to help my clients with getting rid of these fears that were often put in place in childhood. But I then went on a past life progression course, and I found out some of the issues went back many lifetimes, and this worked whether you believe in past lives or not. It seemed to work. But on the course I started to see through time, and I started to see past lives in people's auras, and so the person in front of me would disappear and all their past lives would stack up. And I also discovered I could see forward in time and also see future lives. And then I discovered I could also teach people how to channel, not just their muse, or some people, I work with people that channel angels and archangels and fairies at the bottom of the garden. And I don't know what I'm channeling. I just know that, it's things come through me that I don't know, and therefore it must be an external source. But I learned how to channel the future self. So there's a version of you, let's say you're writing a book in this year, it'll be available in 2018. There's a version of you in the future that knows your book in the future, and you can get the words sent back from the future to the present. And it works a treat. And when you do this, not only do you get this amazing information, but time in the now seems to extend. The old Power of Now with Eckhart Tolle. You get into this state I call EMT, or extended me time. So, time takes this squidgy, ethereal quality on, and you get more done with less of it.
Wonderful. Now, really quickly, I'm curious about how did you go about channeling your future self? Because what I've read about is something called spatial thinking as well, where you sort of imagine that you're talking or having a conversation with your future self, and you ask a question in a journal, and you sort of write down the response, and sometimes you're surprised about what the response is. So was that the same method you're using or something else?
Kind of, yeah. I'm funnily enough, it's funny that this show is about 7 chakras, because I got introduced to the concept of chakras outside our body as well, and I've got a whole program that wakens up the 7 chakras. But also we have a chakra point above our head called the alpha chakra point, and we've got a chakra point below our root outside our body called the omega chakra point. And I learned from a Taoist master how to move your consciousness to different parts of your body. So, for example, people now listening to this can move their consciousness to their big toe and be aware of the toes next to their big toe. That's quite an easy thing to do. You can move your consciousness to your back, and it's a lovely, safe place to be. But also, one of the meditative techniques that is in the 10 meditations that come with the book, I teach people how to move their consciousness to their pineal gland, which is in their head, and you become an observer of your own thoughts. This is like a vipassanic kind of meditation. And from that point, you can allow your consciousness to rise up to your crown and sit just above the top of your head. It takes a little practice, but I've got loads of meditations that teach you how to do that. They're all simple and very safe. And when you go to the alpha chakra point above your head, you are sitting outside space and time. So you can go anywhere. You can go back to the past. You can go into the future. I often channel for other people as well. So I can get my higher self to connect to someone else's higher self and channel as if I'm them. And I wrote a whole book for one guy, and he said to me, as a ghostwriter, he said, "You sound more like me than me." Which is amazing. and so this is the I'm an explorer, I'm an engineer. I like things to do things. So I like this esoteric stuff to have an exoteric outcome, if you know what I mean. So we take the unknown, which is the unknown and occult, which is the esoteric, and we make it known and understood, which is the exoteric. And these techniques, they might be wild fancies of imagination, but they seem to work. And the proof of the pudding is 13 books, over 200 books for other authors, and all that kind of stuff,
Wonderful. And I'm so glad that you spoke about directing your consciousness to different parts of your body. and consciousness outside of your body as well, which is such a powerful Taoist technique, which is there, I believe, in yoga as well. But microcosmic breathing and circulating your consciousness, from the crown down to your dantian and back up. So, really, really interesting topic. Now, so what's happening in your life is you said that you're doing these past life regression courses, you're doing Reiki, you're learning about auras, you can see forward in lives, and you're also channeling. So as an engineer, how are you going about making sense of all these practices? Like, what is your thought process like for making sense?
At first, I thought it was a bit weird. And am I deluding myself? Am I going mad? But then around that kind of time, I started my own podcast, The Zone Show, and it was based on one of the books I wrote about how you get in and stay in the zone. And so on the show, I started to speak to loads of other people who do this stuff too. And I went, maybe I'm not so mad after all. and so that's I guess that was the main thing, is that the scientists seem to poo-poo it because it's not real, but scientists know that 96% of what we see can't be seen anyway. So we are 96% unreal as it stands. And so I guess the way that I use it is to I guess realize that this magic stuff, and then magic's only magic until you know how the trick is done, is not something that comes from us. So it's not like I can do this magic trick. It comes through us, and it's almost like we're entrusted with as much magic that is safe for us. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And this knowledge, just the way you're articulating it, I love it. Makes me so much more interested in Star Wars. Because every time they speak about the Force, I think about this magic, this prana, this chi. So I just wanted to add that.
I know, and over Skype, I do some amazing magic tricks over Skype. I've healed 2 budgies in Canada, and I can beam my heart force to other people's heart forces and heal. And so, I was aware you could do this stuff face to face, and the healing hands work when you're near people. But because it's non-local, we can do this anywhere, and we can do it across space and time. So I've done a lot of healings with people where what you do is you heal the person back in time, and then the person in the now gets instantly healed.
Beautiful. So could you talk to us about the whole brain state? What exactly is that?
Well, the whole brain state is left and right brain. There's a great book called The Master and His Emissary by Ian McGilchrist. And he's a neuroscientist. He spent 15 years researching it. And basically, there was a guy in the 60s called Professor Roger Sperry. And he was the first guy that did split brain experiments. So he would sever the corpus callosum in the brain of epileptics, and he found they would calm down. And he'd also sort of put a blindfold on someone's left eye and all this sort of stuff, and work out what was coming through the right eye. He studied people that had actual strokes and things like that. So it's known that the motor functions of the left side of the body are controlled by the right brain, and the motor functions of the right side of the body are controlled by the left brain. And it came into popular consciousness that the left brain was logical and the right brain is creative. And that's not true. And nowadays what these neuroscientists can do is that they can anesthetize a brain, or a bit of a brain, or half a brain, in someone that's alive and well, as opposed to studying people that have had some sort of trauma or accident. And they can ask someone who's awake to say, "I've just switched off your left brain. How do you feel?" and this sort of stuff, or just tiny bits of the brain. They can beam into tiny bits of the brain, just switch certain bits off. And so it's discovered now that it's not so much that the left brain is logical and the right brain is creative, but the right brain processes all new information and looks at the world from a holistic perspective, and the left brain processes learned responses and looks at the world from a detailed perspective. I should say, the big caveat here: any statement about left and right brain is an approximation and generalization. So that's only in most people, but there are always exceptions to the rules: the autistics, the ADHDs, crystal children, the indigo children's, and as the brain is plastic, it can rewire in an instant. So the whole brain state is when we get the left and right brains working together at the same time, as opposed to just being in the right brain state, someone who's got their head in the clouds, or somebody who has just got that phrase, the devil in the detail. That's someone working just on the detail. And there's a lovely lovely thing you can do. You get onto Google search and you put devil on the shoulder into Google search and look at images. You see all these images of Tom and Jerry cartoons. And classically, the devil always appears on the left shoulder and the angel always appears on the right shoulder. And of course, this goes right back to ancient Greeks, where we had two gods, the god of Kairos and the god of Kronos. And Kronos is the in-time god, and the left brain sits inside space and time, and the right brain is the god of Kairos, the god of the heavens, and that sits outside space and time. I like to call it everywhere and every when else.
Wow. So thanks for that clarification. The right brain processes all the new information, left brain processes the learned response.
Only in most people. And
in most people.
Yeah.
Got it. And this is such a fascinating topic. I'm currently reading a book by Norman Deutsch, and I think it's quite. The name of the book is escaping me. How the Brain Heals Itself. I think that's the name of the book. Right. But so many case studies, so many fascinating stories and anecdotes of how people have used neuroplasticity to heal themselves of their situation, their disease, or whatever it is, and lead completely healthy and wonderful lives. So thanks a lot for sharing that. You've suggested that mindfulness meditation helps us experience aha moments on demand. How does that happen?
Well, remember that phrase, thinking is the mind talking and meditation is the mind listening. So if you're thinking about something, it's impossible to think about something else. So if you think about the thing you're thinking about, and then you think about that thought, then the new thought replaces the thought you were having. And there's a physicist, David Bohm, he says, if you think about a thought, you can't think about its content, and if you think about its direction, you lose the content, or something like that, I think. So, and it's a peculiarity of the normal human mind. So, when you get into the meditative state, then you can receive. But importantly, it's important to realize where you receive from. And the point that we receive from is the pineal gland. So moving our consciousness to the pineal gland is the way to do this. But also, light bulb moments come in outside space and time. And when I wrote that book, I was doing loads of research on where light bulb moments came from, and nobody seemed to have researched it. So I had to channel in the answer about the whole nature of the light bulb moment. And I discovered it's not just a whole brain event where the left and right brain get involved. It's a whole minds event, and minds in the plural is very important there. And what happens in less than a second is the light bulb moment comes in through the pineal gland, either through the crown or through the cerebellum at the back of the head. And it shoots right down to your root. And it checks in with the earth mind to make sure the idea is ecological for the planet. And then it moves up to your gut mind. And then you say, do I give this a green light? And then it moves up to the heart mind, and you fall in love with the idea. And then it moves up to the right brain, and you start to see all of the scope of the idea. And then you move to the left brain and you start to get the detail, and then it moves to the throat mind and you shout eureka, and all of this happens in less than a second. And because it's a whole minds event, your whole body gets excited by the light bulb moment, and that's why you know it's different from any other thought, because you know it's kind of earth breaking and earth shattering.
Wow, beautiful. So if someone wanted to learn more about these multiple minds, what resource would you point the person to?
On my website, I've got a program called Heartful Living. And that's a whole mind awakening program, and it take you 7 days, starting at the base, going to the crown, and then it activates the alpha and omega. I also help people get into what's called the unified chakra state as well, which is another level above our standard awakening level. And then I've got loads of because I'm an engineer, as I keep mentioning, I've got loads of applications for how you can use certain mind centers for certain things. So, for example, moving your mind to the pineal gland so you can see the future, how you can become clairvoyant, how you can use your heart to heal, how you can use your heart to find your soulmate, and how do you use your heart to soften tense situations. Let's say you're going to meet the solicitors or the accountants. You can beam your heart to all the people in the meeting before you get there, and you'll find that everyone's quite happy for some strange, inexplicable reason.
Awesome. Now, diving a bit deeper, what does science and research have to say about the effects of meditation?
Well, quite a lot. I don't pay much attention to it because so many scientists seem to be quite dogmatic and materialistic, and I haven't got any time for anyone that hasn't got any time for this. Does that make sense? And I'm not being arrogant or anything, but one of the things about if you take a scientific approach to this, you end up in the left brain state. So you switch all of this stuff off. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So,
yes,
but
yes.
there are some open-minded scientists. There's a great guy called Rupert Sheldrake I love. He's an English maverick scientist, and he's got this concept called morphic resonance that explains how I can see through time. And I can also teach anyone to do this. So we can all, it's not just me, and I've met loads of people that do it too. And, but anyone could be taught to see through time.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is we are resonant with, you're resonant with the version of you a second ago and a second from now, but also a minute ago and a minute from now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And and the person that we resonate most strongly with, of course, is ourselves, because we're so tuned in with this, our DNA is like a tuning fork. But also in time, you can learn to tune in with other people and become empathetic and you know, for example, tune in with people's dis-eases. Or I like when I'm working with an author, I tune into their future too and see their book. And I learned after a while, I used to be really helpful and tell people their future book titles, but I realized that I was stopping their joy of discovering it for themselves, if you know what I mean. So now I work with them for the sake they discover it, and then what the thing that I got initially, which was their book title, they confirm it, you know, a little while later. So does that answer your question? Sorry.
It does. It does. I wanted to get your perspective on that. And like you rightly mentioned, if you go into all the research, it sort of limits or puts a roadblock into meditation and your experience and your intuition of it. So completely agree with that. Now, my question is, were there any unintended or unexpected benefits that you've received from meditation? Something that caught you by surprise?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing it does is it makes you luckier. So, you know, a real short-term benefit of meditation is, you know, obviously a lot of the books I write about, I talk about how you get more things done in less time. And part of that reason is because of this singularity of the nature of human thought. So if you're thinking about something else than the thing you should be thinking about, then your efficiency drops. But with a quiet mind, you notice things more as well. So you notice serendipities and you're more in tune to, you know, when things happen in patterns of three, and you think, oh, if someone says I must read that book 3 times, I must pay attention to it. So that's one thing that was unexpected to me, that, you know, I seemed to land on my feet a bit more, and also I was spending less effort. I was getting more done with less stress and less effort. But I think one of the best things, and obviously the jury's out on this at the moment on how long this might last, is just how you can live weller for longer. So you spend less time being ill and out of sorts, which of course, and again, increases your efficiency. But someone said to me once that it's thought that every minute you spend in meditation, you get a minute added to your longevity, or maybe not your longevity, but the amount of time you got when you're living and enjoying life a bit more. And so if that's true, then spending 10 minutes every day and that building up over time is kind of a madness not to do it, isn't it? And I've certainly discovered that. If you look at my passport photo 10 years ago, I look older 10 years ago.
Now, speaking about time, you've written that you're a master at bending time. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
It means that time is an illusion. And the passage of time, the humans are the only beings on the planet that work to time. Now, time is great because it meant that you and I turned up at the right time. You know, you're in one time zone, I'm in a different time zone. But seconds, minutes, hours, weeks, and months don't exist. The only time constants are the rotation of the Earth every single day, the rotation of the Moon around the Earth, and the rotation of the Earth around the Sun. So the only things that are true are the day, the moonth, as I like to call it, not the month, the moonth, and the Earth time. So if you get in tune with those, and if you get back into natural time. So, for example, I know that I'm creative first thing in the morning, so I don't try and write in the afternoon. You know, I have client sessions then, or podcasts and that sort of thing. And so I'm in tune with when I'm best in the day, which is the morning time. I also work to the moon cycles. So I think we're coming up to a new moon just now. So I'm always mindful of where we are in the month, and between new moon and the full moon, it's a good idea to plan and think and experiment. And from full moon to new moon, it's a good idea to act. And then also I'm very mindful of the seasons. So after writing 3 books, I realized I wrote them all in spring. So I don't even try and write a book in autumn now. I always write them in spring and summer because I know that I'll write a better book then. And you get a lot less stress about when you deliver things. So you jump out into, so by getting into the whole brain state, you jump into this lovely state I call EMT, or extended me time, where time stretches and you get more things done with less time. But also you work to the natural time constants. Don't forget about months, forget about weeks and all that kind of stuff. Tune into the natural cycles, and you'll find you stop pushing water uphill and you kind of go with the temporal flow.
So I love that you've mentioned that time is an illusion, which is something that I've been sort of pondering and wrestling with over the last couple of days. In fact, yesterday I was meditating, and I ended up meditating for, I think, an hour's time. But when I woke up, or when I came back to consciousness from the meditation state, it felt like it was maybe a couple of seconds or maybe minutes. So I wasn't able to make sense of it, although I have meditated in the past, and I wrote this down in the journal as well. It seemed like I had lost sense of time when I was meditating, and so it seems like what you're saying makes complete sense.
It does, yeah. So there's only one thing that beats to the second. I wrote this in one of my books, and that's the thoughts of someone watching a clock. How about that? Maybe I should have made that my inspirational quote. So the only thing that beats to the second in the whole universe is the thoughts of someone watching the clock.
Could you explain that a bit?
Yes. So if you sit in time, remember this left brain thing? So if you sit looking at a clock, and remember, time is not only an illusion, but it's a consensual illusion. So if you're with people that sort of stick to the clock, and you've been waiting for a plane that's been delayed, and you're coming back from holiday, you read all your books, then time seems to stretch out, doesn't it? Whereas you've got a weekend with friends, then it seems to go really, really, really quickly. And so, so if we try and observe time, it kind of seems to stretch out. And if we jump outside time, as you did in that meditation, then amazing things happen. But the other thing that happens with this state is you allow stuff to arrive. So what I find is, you mentioned about that book that I wrote last year. I didn't plan to write the book. I didn't spend any time trying to find a publisher. The publisher found me. I didn't even have to write a proposal to the publisher. They said, "Will you come and write this book for me?" Yeah. And I thought about it. Well, I wasn't planning to write a book, but it wasn't a big book, so I did it. So when you get into this flow state, the world arrives at your feet, and it becomes a lot less stressful, if you know what I mean. But if you want to live in time with everyone else, then you'll find you'll always be struggling, because collectively people are making this big issue around time. But in the book I wrote about it, Managing Time Mindfully, we created the clock. It's a man-made clock, and very specifically it's a man-made clock because women are timed to the moon. Their menstrual cycles are timed to the moon, or they used to be. And so man made the clock so we can run this wonderful society. And as I said, for you and I to turn up exactly at the right time on the right day, which is really useful. But also when we're trying to do something creative, it becomes a bit of a burden for us. So we can jump outside time, as I say, channel your future self. You could go back into the past and pick up memories that you've maybe forgotten about. If you're writing a historical novel, you can even channel historical figures if you want to, so you can do amazing stuff with it. And to me, this is all lovely. It's fun. It's great. It's active imagination. And it only happens when you just disavow yourself of the notion that time is fixed and linear.
Beautiful. So, Tom, how do you go about planning your week? Are there any things that you do or don't do to set yourself up for success, the way you define success?
Yeah, I've got a lovely blog that I must share with you. It's called My Magical Week. And I mentioned about the days of the week being slightly arbitrary.
Yes,
they're based on the names in certainly in Western culture are based on like Roman and Norse gods, And so I thought, well, why don't I make Monday my men's day, and that's the day I'll do some healing. And Tuesday I made my tools day, so that's the day I create tools like these meditations that we're talking about. I've got a great meditation I did recently called How to Get Rid of Jet Lag, and it uses astral traveling to reduce jet lag to zero. And that would have been created on a tools day. Wednesday I do I call it Weeds Day instead of Wednesday, and that's the day I work on people's blocks. Thursday I call my surge day, so that's when I do my marketing, and Friday is my free day, so that's when I just do anything. Now, because of this interview, I made an exception for you today on Saturday. Saturday I call my sitter day. That's when I sit around and just relax. And then Sunday is my sunny day when I get out into the fresh air and do something wonderful out in nature. And I encourage everyone else to create their own days of the week and then to stick to them. And it's just a great fun thing to do. And I don't have to do mending on Monday all day, but on some time on Monday, that's when I'd like to do a healing session or something of that sort of nature.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot for sharing that with us. Now, for our listeners who want to get started right away, is there a simple meditation technique that you can share with us?
Yeah, there's a really, really good one. In some of my meditations, I say at the beginning, whatever you do, don't listen to this meditation when you're driving, operating machinery, or flying a jumbo jet. So obviously one of the things you can do with meditation, and especially if someone's listening to this meditation while they're driving, if I give them the technique now, it could make them it can make them drowsy. I wouldn't want that to happen. But this is a very simple technique you can do. You can kind of do it while you're driving, but just be a bit careful if you are. And what you do is an eyes open meditation. And it's we're talking about the mind starting up automatically. No matter whatever you do, it all starts up automatically. When you wake up, you start thinking. And when you go to sleep, you stop thinking. And then maybe you get into dream states and stuff like this. So what you do, this is a very simple way to get your mind to shut up. And what you do is you find a spot on the wall and you just stare at it. And it could be a nail, it could be a pinprick, it could be, I don't know, a light switch or something like that, or an electrical socket. And you stare at the socket or the pot on the wall, and then you become aware of the stuff around it, just above and below and to the left and the right. So I'm staring right at your image on Skype right now. And so I'm looking right at your image on Skype, but I'm being aware of the screen around you. So the top, I've got the Skype bar, but I'm not letting my eyes go to the top or the bottom. I'm still staring at you. And then what you do is you let your awareness go out. So you're looking maybe about 2 foot above, or about 600 centimeters above, 600 centimeters, 2 feet out to the side, 2 feet or 670 centimeters down below. And so you now widen your attention, so you're taking more of the room in. And then what you do is you allow yourself your attention, so you can actually imagine that you're looking at the periphery around you. You're looking at the walls either side of you, the floor beneath you, and the ceiling above you, all the time, keeping your gaze right on this center spot on the wall. And then what you do is you go on the next in-breath, you say to yourself internally the word be, and then a big out-breath, about 4 times as long as the in-breath, you say the word calm. So this is a mantra, it's the be calm mantra. And you go in with the word be internally and out with the word calm. Just repeat that about 4 or 5 times. And you'll find all your thoughts go to zero and you stop thinking.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot for sharing that amazing meditation. Action Tribe, to access the show notes for today's episode, visit my7chakras.com/193. That's my7chakras.com/193. We do not see things as they are. We see them as we are. Action Tribe, this is a quote from the Talmud, and there is so much truth in this simple statement. Our ability to perceive things, understand situations, and then make decisions is largely dependent on our internal state of being. So if you're angry or resentful, then everything around you will feel negative and draining. If you're feeling tired and exhausted, everything around you will seem like it's taking away your energy. On the other hand, if you're feeling optimistic and charged up, then it will feel as if life is happening for you and not to you, just the way it should be. What I'm trying to say here is that especially if you're making a critical decision or you're starting something new, take some time to recharge your internal state of being, whether it's meditating, working out at a gym, or watching your favorite movie. Whatever it is, take some time to reconnect with your true self, because you'll find out that things turn out much better that way. So Tom, talk to us about a time when you experienced a major life challenge or an obstacle. How did you enter that situation? And then what steps did you take to come out of it?
Well, that's a really hard question for me, because I've lived a really charmed life. I've always landed on my feet. And I even wrote a book about it, because my mother had passed away. And I took on a big business consultant to say, look, what should I do next? And she said to me, Tom, why don't you write about your life? And I said, well, I can't do that because all these books on I don't want to be big-headed or anything like that. And she said, all these books on personal development, they all talk about someone going to the edge and coming back, and how they got this learning from going to the edge. And I know this because I've mentored loads of people to write books exactly of this sort of nature, and I've never had that going to the edge or back moment. So I wrote this book called New Magic for a New Era, How to Live a Charmed Life. And the first chapter in it is called No Hell and Back. And the whole point is you don't have to go to hell and back to get spiritual enlightenment. There is an easier way. So I can't answer that question because I've not faced a major challenge. All I faced is major opportunities.
Yes.
And I come from tell the story. I came from a very poor background. Well, poor relatively for England. 7 children to Irish Catholic parents and stuff like that. So we had no money. There were days when I don't think we ate very much and stuff like that. And I don't count myself as a rich person now, but I'm certainly not poor. But I've never had that challenge. The only recent challenge, if I'm honest with you, is that, stepping out into whatever it is I'm now, I do find that a bit of a challenge, only because I'm quite self-effacing and British about it all. And, but I really haven't had that challenge. And my advice to everyone out there is that going to hell and back is optional.
Got it. So I completely agree with you. I mean, you don't have to go to hell and back like a lot of stories say, right? I experienced this, I became bad, and this is how I changed. In your case, let me change the question. Talk to us about a magical moment that came into your life out of nowhere, something that you did not expect, and what did you learn from that?
Well, I think now you're hitting the button really, and that's really. I was on a plane, 39,000 feet in the middle of the Atlantic. And I don't mind telling you this, my wife had been a bit ill about 3 or 4 years ago. And I saved up some money for her 40th birthday to take her on Concorde to New York. And by the time she was well enough to travel again, Concorde had stopped service because, I had that horrible accident in Paris. So I had some money in this bank account, and I said, right, I'm going to treat you to a first-class flight to the Caribbean, and that'll be your delayed 40th birthday present. And flying at 39,000 feet, she was at the bar having a few drinks, having a great time, having met some people. And I had a Cyan 7, the Apple iPads weren't even out then, Cyan 7. And I started to write this book. I didn't realize, but I was trying to write this poetry called about a woman that lives to 100. And I wrote it in poetry, in snapshots of her life. And it ended up being my first book. And it's called 100 Years of Momentrude. It's quite a short book. And it's the thing that took me out of that bored IT consultant mode into what I'm doing now. But when I was writing it, I was in floods of tears, absolute floods of tears. And it's not really a sad book. And I mentioned this to a lovely lady called Wendy Salter after I got back. And she said, Tom, it was the angels. You were tuning into the angels. And when you get like 0.001% of angelic love flowing through you, the love is so intense that these tears come from you. They're not like tears of sadness or tears of joy. They're just a weird thing. And that whole book got written by the time I landed, and it's changed my career.
Wow. That's a truly inspiring story. Now, from this story, what is that one major life lesson that you would like to share with our listeners?
Do I think the major thing I want people to do is just put their head slightly above the parapet every day. Just do something that is slightly different. Go a different way. If you commute, just get off the train, stop before and walk. Welcome adversity into your life. So when times get hard, just say, what can you learn from that? Where's the lesson in that message? But most importantly, when you get a good bit of luck, thank that bit of luck for coming along. You don't have to be, I'm not religious per se, but you don't have to thank the angels or God or anything like that. Just or you can thank your future self for sending this bit of serendipity your way. So put your head above this parapet, welcome adversity into your life, and thank it for coming along for the lesson that it brings, and then really thank the luck and serendipity that comes your way for the gift that it really is.
Wonderful. So thanks a lot for sharing your story. You mentioned that you were on a plane 39,000 feet above the Atlantic, and you had, at that point, you were heading towards the Caribbean because you had saved money for treating your wife and having some good times in the Caribbean, beautiful weather. And on the plane, you had a magical moment where you found yourself writing poetry about a woman who lives till she's 100. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
you experienced floods of tears while writing this, but it wasn't because you were sad or disappointed. And then after speaking to someone, you found out that these were tears because you were in tune with angels and you were having that magical moment. And the book was written by the end of the journey, which is amazing. So,
and can I tell you another funny story about it as well?
Yeah.
As a result of writing that book, not only did I get this new career, but it mentioned breast cancer in the book. It's not about breast cancer, but it just mentioned it, and it got adopted by this breast cancer charity. And as a result of writing that book, I ended up walking around London in a bra at midnight with 15,000 women, raising money for breast cancer charities for 26 miles and doing a marathon around London. So weird things happen when you communicate with the angels.
Beautiful. And, it seems like you're the sort of person who is always receptive and open to adventures, right? And I think that's the way life is supposed to be led, to look at each new day as a new adventure, because life becomes so much more interesting as a result of that. So thanks a lot for sharing. Action Tribe, as the days go by, what I'm being reminded of all the time is to live in the moment. You see, like yourself, I set big goals for myself and this moment. I have a grand vision of what I want to achieve and where I want to go in life, mentally, physically, and spiritually. I also have high standards for what I expect from myself. But what I'm learning to love these days is the search. I'm loving this journey and the struggles that come along the way. I'm loving the challenges that come out of nowhere, and I'm falling in love with the quest that I'm on. And I'm so grateful that we are in this together, because this moment that we are sharing right now, this very moment that you're listening to me right now, think about it. Once this moment is gone, we won't get this moment again. So remember, as Dr. Abraham Tversky once said, in spirituality, the searching is the finding and the pursuit is the achievement. So Tom, what is your life calling as on today?
I think my life calling as of today is an awakening calling. I think it's about me seeing the world in a different light, and then learning as an engineer, almost reverse engineering my own awakening process, and then teaching other people how to go through that same process.
Phenomenal. Now, my next question was actually talking about a defining moment in your life. Mm-hmm. Maybe a phrase that you read in a book or an interaction that you had with someone. Was there ever a defining moment that changed your life?
There was a long time ago. I had this amazing light bulb moment once, and I didn't know at the time what a light bulb moment was, but it threw me. It was a mid-20s hiccup almost, or no, late 20s hiccup. And that threw me into a whole world of entrepreneurship. I'd been working at the BBC. I got a job at Sony. This is a kind of non-spiritual story, but I only just thought about it now, but it's kind of relevant. And I always used to work with cameramen. I was quite a techie with broadcast cameras, and people would come to me saying with problems. And this guy said, why can't we have cameras that synchronize with computer screens? So when you don't get this flicker. And I had this light bulb moment of how to do it. And I invented this box, and it interfaced with a TV camera. So it would synchronize the rate of the TV camera. And I made a lot of money out of it. And I became an entrepreneur. So it got me out of corporate into a slightly different space. And I guess the significance of that moment then is still playing out now. And I don't know if there's a term for this, or actually maybe there is a term. We could coin it on air now. In fact, I think someone mentioned one to me a few years ago, a lovely lady called Tina Fotherby. I was at the time I became an entrepreneur, I became really good at business. And I was never taught it. I never did an MBA or anything like that. Made quite a lot of money, which is kind of nice for a guy that came from a very, very poor background. And that set me in good stead for the work I'm doing now. But I guess what I am doing now is I'm a spiritual entrepreneur. So I'm finding all these lovely spiritual techniques and I'm doing something with them. And a lady called Tina Fotherby said to me a couple of years ago, why don't we have ompreneurs? Wouldn't that be a nice thing to have in the world? So, people like you and me that know some of these things, these lovely techniques, and then how can we use them for real world outcomes? And we live, people talk about going to heaven after you've been on earth, but for me, heaven is on earth. And why don't we just bring a bit more heaven down to earth and create a nicer place for everyone to be? And if you believe in reincarnation, we might have to come back here again in the future. So it makes sense to leave this planet better than when we arrived on it, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a very wonderful, powerful thought.
Yeah.
I think entrepreneurs are highly spiritual, irrespective of their belief systems, because what they're doing essentially is that they're translating a thought that was in their mind and really manifesting it in the real plane, in the physical plane in front of them.
Exactly.
And also using a lot of channeling, a lot of communication with different people in different geographical locations, and bringing people together towards this common vision and purpose. So that takes a lot, and that's what I think a lot of entrepreneurs are finding out is how to tap more into that spiritual realm and become a conscious entrepreneur, as you're suggesting right now. So thanks a lot for sharing that. And with that, we've come to the last round for today's show, the wisdom round, which is all about 4 questions with 4 short but profound responses. So my question is, what is the best advice that someone's ever given you?
My dad said to me, never lend anyone any more money than you can afford to lose.
Name a personal habit that keeps you going.
Meditating every single day.
Awesome. So what is your morning routine like? What do you do during the first 2 hours of your day?
I meditate and write. So there's always some stuff. Gina Cameron talks about morning pages. I write something every single day.
Yeah, I've heard about morning pages, but I haven't really done them yet. But I've heard a lot of people talk about them and recommend them. So thanks for sharing. Name a book that you'd like to recommend for our listeners today.
I would like people to read Cosmic Memory by Rudolf Steiner.
We're going to have that in the show notes for sure. Mm-hmm. Action Tribe, I know how much you love our book recommendations, and I know that many of you purchase these books as soon as you hear them shared on our show. And that's why audible.com is offering Action Tribe one free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial so that you can get to check out their amazing service. Now, Audible, in case you haven't heard, has over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, or Kindle, including bestsellers like The Chakra System by Anna Dear Judith, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, and A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/MSC. Once again, that's Audible, AUDIBLE, trial, TRIAL.com/MSC for your free audiobook. So Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks for sharing those wonderful stories. Before you go, tell us something that you are grateful for, and tell us the best way we can find you online.
I think I'm really grateful for the angels visiting my world, make me aware of them, and teaching me how to tap into them on a moment's notice. And I put angels in inverted commas. I don't know who they are. I don't ascribe any religious connotation to them. And you can find me pretty easily on www.tomevans.co, not .com or .co.uk, just .co. I couldn't afford the M of the .com, so it's just tomevans.co.
Got it. So there you go, Action Tribe. If you want to learn more about some of the fascinating topics that we've spoken about today, if you want to learn practical mindfulness, then go to tomevans.co. We'll have the link up in the show notes as well. So Tom, thank you so much for coming on our show, talking to us about so many different topics and about meditation and the benefits of it, and taking us one step closer to a human revolution.
Thank you. And as one podcast host to another, deep bow to you. You're an amazing interviewer.
Thanks a lot.
You were listening to My 7 Chakras. Go to mysevenchakras.com. Download your free gift, get inspired, and take action. Transform your life today.